Well, good evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook here, along with my friends, Director of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Colin Mosley, Representative David Freeze, and Leader Chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Chris Miller. And this is our Tuesday night edition of the Illinois Freedom Caucus Roundtable and Conservative Campfire, where we are always in the relentless pursuit of truth, logic, and common sense and the American way. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you all doing tonight?
Evening, doing great. The rain has finally stopped.
Monsoon season has been kind of rough this year, so
yeah, that's spring though. So
yeah,
we're good here in Clay County too. My yard's a few feet tall, but had a great reception with Americans for Prosperity and the Freedom Caucus today in Effingham, celebrating education choice, defending homeschool education. And I'm back home doing this live stream from the comfort of my bed because our house is under construction. So it's always something going on.
Always something. And Representative Miller, have they got East Central Illinois covered up with solar panels yet, or is there still a few acres to farm?
Well, we've got a few acres to farm, and the weather's been a little dampy here, but the mushrooms have been biting, and the turkeys have been dropping dead, and so it's all good. We find plenty of things to do when we can't sit on the planter and drive around in circles all day.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm happy that you are found your way out to harvest nature's bounty, and we wouldn't expect anything any different. Hey, it looks like we've got Representative Adam Niemerg joining us here. Hey, welcome, Representative Leader Niemerg.
Hey, everybody, sorry I'm late. We were having dinner and just remembered. Apologize for that.
That's quite okay. We were just kind of get it rolling. We were talking about monsoon season and harvesting now nature's bounty with turkeys and mushrooms. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I just finished up fishing over at Farm Pond, and yeah, it's a little wet. Everything's a little soaked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Director Mosley, let's get into our slides and talk about our topics tonight. We're going to talk about the IHSA petition update and what's going on with that. And then we're going to talk about Lion Electric, and we're going to throw in a little bit kind of an update about Rivian. You know, those are kind of popular subjects among the Illinois Freedom Caucus. And so with that, let's go to the Illinois High School Association, the petition update. And let's go to Director Mosley, and then David, if you have a comment, and then maybe Adam, and let's just go in that order. So, Director?
Yeah, hey, this is a result of the letter that we sent to the IHSA asking them to, amend their policy on allowing transgender men to be involved in, or transgender women, rather, biological men in women's sports. IHSA sent a letter back basically saying, no, we're not going to change anything, and you guys need to figure it out, and blah, blah, blah. Basically, they punted, they kicked the can down the road in order to appease the crazy liberal mob. So Freedom Caucus did a petition, and we're over 3,000 signatures across hundreds of school districts in Illinois. And we're hoping that you can help us get to 5,000 signatures here by the end of the week to send a message to the IHSA and your local school boards that we're not going to tolerate this madness, that there are men's sports for men and girls sports for girls.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of those, everybody says this is an 80-20 issue. Probably it's more like 95-5. I have yet to meet anybody that says that, yeah, I want a biological man competing against my daughter, or I want biological men, stripping down in front of my daughter in the locker room. This is absolute madness, and why we can't take a stand. We take a stand, but why the IHSA can't do what's right is just beyond me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Adam, any thoughts on this?
Well, this kind of goes back to, the COVID mitigation standards when the IHSA sided with Governor Pritzker on the masking of kids for athletics. That really, really hurt our cause, trying to make sure these schools, didn't have masking for all our kids that were affected by COVID. So to see this, it's really no surprise, but it's deeply frustrating because, in there they say that we're going to conform with, whatever gender that particular person feels like they are that day. That's the sport that they can compete in, which, like David said, I think this is a 95-5 or even a 98-2. It's common sense. And when we've gotten this far in this country that we're actually having these conversations, it really makes me sit back and say, wow, we've really gone off the deep end here. And, Colin, you got a little confused at the beginning trying to figure out what terminology to use. And I tell you, folks, I can't keep it straight. You probably can't keep it straight, but we need to return to reasonable and get back to common sense in the state of Illinois, especially, and keep men out of women's sports and locker rooms.
Yeah, well, they don't call it tranny madness and euphoria for nothing. Or so yeah.
But what do you expect from a party that can't even tell you what a woman is, though?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're still waiting on that answer, aren't we, there, Brother Albrecht?
Maybe, it's the month of May, so we're coming up on the 12-month anniversary of the question of what the definition of opposite sex is. So that will maybe that'll emerge. I'm sure there'll probably be some lively debate in and around that.
Yeah.
Who's
going to celebrate Mother's Day?
Yeah. Well, it's nice that we have a man in the White House that understands these things, and he is I don't know whether it's an executive order or proclamation or whatever he did. He declared that there's two sexes, men and women, and they shouldn't be in each other's private spaces. Just like Representative Nehmer mentioned, this is all about common sense. If you take a little peek down there right below your belly button, you'll figure it out.
Well, it's always fun to go back to anatomy and biology class here on Tuesday night. So,
thank you. Yeah. Just trying to make it real, guys.
Yeah. Well, let's move right along as the director has changed our slides here. We're going to talk about the green energy failures in the state of Illinois. Boy, big news here with Lion Electric, the bus manufacturer. Kind of started out on a rocky road. They've never gotten any better. They filed for bankruptcy. The Canadian government has made the declaration they're not going to bail them out. They've got the Joliet plant up for auction here this month, and I don't know if that auction's underway, but it's going to happen here any day now that auction is happening. Gentlemen, I'll just kind of throw it open. I got a couple of numbers here. Maybe if I can get to the right page. Yeah, so last year they had sales of almost $177 million. They sold 552 units, and they lost $131 million.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And
good business.
And of course, our governor, he's all about this. He has committed $50 million in payroll tax credits, but the feds have wrote him a check from the federal EPA for the tune of $38 million. They've got $38 million of federal taxpayer dollars. That happened some time ago. So yeah, that's good financing there to Lions Electric.
Do you think they had a bad business plan, or what do you think the reason for this was there, Representative Albrecht?
Well, I just think it's the lack of adoption of the whole EV industry, right?
Well, when your business model is grounded in some radical ideology rather than free market principles, this is what you run into. I've got folks coming to me in my district talking to me about a new auto plant going up in the Evansville area, and some plants going up over there in Indiana. And why can't we have that here and have automotive infrastructure here and build gasoline powered automobiles here in the state of Illinois? Yet you see with the governor and his green new scam that he has perpetuated and pushed so hard. I tell you one thing, I don't want my kids riding in an electric bus. It's a massive failure. It's costing the taxpayers unbelievable amount of money. And in the wintertime, when those kids are being, ran back and forth for an hour on the bus, no, it's not going to work.
Right, exactly.
I know it should have been a tip off. I'm friends with the superintendent of schools in Hoopston, and I know that when they delivered those buses, I think they have a staging area for these in Kankakee to Hoopston. It can't be 50 miles, and yet they transported these buses on semis when they delivered them. And I told him I said that should have been a tip off right there. That they were concerned about driving them 50 miles and making it.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Right.
Yeah, it just goes along with
That's
all
a true story too.
Yeah, it just goes along with all the other absurd green energy stuff that they're pushing. We talked about this briefly on the floor. MISO Their rates are going to go up this summer. You got to bid for the electricity on the grid. Why? Well, because they're shutting gas and coal down, and wind and solar don't replace that at this time. So everybody in my area is probably going to see 18 to 22% increase in their electric this summer.
Which in the aggregate is basically a 40 to 50% increase over the last 3 to 4 years. And
hey, but we're saving the earth.
Right.
They're not saving the planet; they're ripping you off.
I mean, Senator Kennedy did an excellent bit about this. I can't remember, a few weeks ago now. That crazy liberal ski athlete that appeared before the committee, and Kennedy's like, so tell me what carbon dioxide is. They don't friggin' know.
No.
And then it's like, how much money should we spend to lower the atmospheric temperature by 0.001 degree? These people don't know anything except what makes them feel good.
Right. Yeah. They can't define how much they need to lower the temperature or the CO2 output, and they can't tell you how much money it's going to take. It's just really a hopeless cause. Guys, 1 year ago, Director Mosley and I went to the governor's mansion there in May. It was a beautiful spring day. It was EV Day. We're coming up on that 1 year anniversary this week. Boy, they were all there. Rivian and Lions and all the EV manufacturers had their greatest vehicles parked there. And of course, we came back and found out that afternoon that Rivian had their quarterly earnings call and just had announced hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of losses have accumulated last year. And of course, they're on target for more of the same, maybe just a little bit less of a loss this year than last. But again, they're slated to lose almost $2 billion this coming year, just Rivian.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll bail them out.
And some of that's your money, folks.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
well, over $800 million the governor gave them in tax incentives and cash last year. Over $800 million.
Yeah,
I just, it's just crazy.
We should come up with some fruity idea and sell it as green, and maybe they'll give us a bunch of money too. Make it our retirement plan.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, I remember distinctly too at EV Day last year, walking around and seeing all of the Ford Mustang Mach-E's that the government had purchased for state employees. And then looking around and seeing all of the the utility companies that were buying into this stuff, and if you look at how the winters went with our crazy snow we had, those people couldn't go to work because their electric vehicles could not operate in that, and not only in those temperatures, but in the snow.
Right, exactly. Well, the numbers that I saw researched here, looks like revenue for Rivian is going to be down 36%. Sales of their vehicles this first quarter looks like it's going to come in down about 6,000 units from 14,611 to 8,640. So down about 6,000 units. It's just people are not buying into these vehicles for all those reasons that we've just talked about here the last few minutes. And again, we've seen domestic and foreign manufacturers kind of parking some of their plans, scaling them way back in the EV stuff. It's just an idea that the American people are not buying into, and maybe people across the world.
Yeah, no, everybody, like Colin mentioned, when we get in our vehicles, we want to be able to turn the key, hear that engine roar, regardless of what the temperature is outside, and be able to go and go long distances, and not have to worry about running into or tracking down some charging station if you haven't made it to your destination. Yeah. And then you're going to sit there for how long at a charger, and it's not very efficient.
If you have kids and you're stopping at a gas station just to use the restroom and get moving again, that's long enough. Imagine sitting there 3 hours with a couple of kids on a family trip. Wow.
Right. No, thank you. Yeah.
Right. Gentlemen, any more thoughts about the Lion Electric or the Rivian stuff before we move on to the closing slide and kind of a lightning round of closing comments?
We're going to see more of this. That's all I got to say. Lion is the first to start selling things off and getting the heck out of Dodge. I think we're going to see more of this.
Yeah.
It's just going to be.
I think what we'll experience.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Well, I was just going to say, I think they are exactly right. As we're going to see a domino effect as these companies start to fold, and everybody's figuring out that this green energy thing is a scam, and it's been probably next to COVID, it's probably be the biggest scam that we've seen in our lifetime. And it's destined for failure from the beginning, because there's no way that this is going to work, because America runs on cheap, affordable, reliable energy, and if you can't produce that, people aren't interested.
Right, exactly. All right, Director, let's go to the next slide, and you can tell us all about that.
Yeah, this is just our website where you can find all of our information, our Substack where you get the conservative update from Springfield every week or every other week, and all of our events and all the good stuff comes there. Be watching that as we hit the dog days of legislative session.
Exactly. Yeah, well, and so with that, gentlemen, we have 4 weeks to go to get to May 31st. We're not scheduled for any Mondays, but we are scheduled Tuesday through Friday for the next 4 weeks. I guess the last week we're actually scheduled through Saturday, May 31st, and hopefully we will get out of there on May 31st, but I could see us rolling into May 32nd, Sunday morning. We've done that in the past. So, yeah. Hey, let's go to Adam, and then David, and then Chris for some closing comments. And before we do that, Director, is there any other closing thoughts you have before we go to Adam, David, and Chris to close out?
No, all I've got is, I mentioned it earlier, but thank you again to Americans for Prosperity for hosting a great reception today in Effingham defending homeschool, and we'll keep fighting that fight.
Yeah, exactly. Adam, you were there to the homeschool event that AFP put on. What was your thoughts about that? And then closing thoughts as we head into the final session.
I want to thank them for the opportunity to do that. We Blaine and I sit on the education committee, so that was a thank you, and very awesome for them to do that. We had a great turnout, and it was for all of us. We all push back. We all fight the crazy in Springfield. But, the next 4 weeks are going to be interesting as usual. Buckle up for the crazy, and we'll get through it together.
Exactly. Yeah. David, any closing thoughts?
Well, one of the things that's going to really interest me coming up is, what we do with our budget. That's going to be a huge issue this session. The revenue's not there that they forecasted. So, yeah, I think we're going to have a couple bumps in the road before we get to the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting already. Here we are in the first week of May, and you talk about appropriations, what's happened on the budget. And, one of the committees that I sit in is already canceled their committee hearing this week. So I think the fun has began. Leader Chairman Miller, any closing thoughts?
Well, it's going to be interesting as we move forward. As you mentioned, the budget, as you mentioned, we've talked about these EV plants closing down, and just if you look at the model in Europe, they are moving away from these renewable scam issues with solar panels and windmills, and they're moving back to coal generated fire plants where they can produce cheap, affordable, reliable energy. And I think that that's one thing that we can see. We can look at that template and go ahead and shutter the doggone thing and open the coal mine and the oil wells back up, and drill baby drill and dig baby dig. And I know something coming up here that you might want to pay attention to is, I believe on the 13th of May, that we're going to be doing a press conference and talking about the budget and Illinois Doge, and revealing a lot of interesting fun facts that you'll want to tune into that.
Exactly. And with that, everyone, we appreciate you tuning in. And as always, we would really appreciate that you would like, share, follow, and subscribe to our content. Help us get the word out. Help us overcome the algorithmic gods of the big tech overlords, which are a real thing. And so we appreciate your time. And with that, let's sign off and say good night, and we'll talk to you real soon.